My world moves virtually at the speed of light, spinning spirally in space towards a future that's full of promises, full of dreams. I choose to be real with my dreams. I choose to find myself in a place where my dreams are beautifully shaped and nurtured. A haven of true knowledge and light. A place where I learn to live my life.
Situated next to the Philippine seat of power. With campuses in the country's major hubs of business and commerce. Culture and history. Centro Escolar University is the place where the highest forms of human thought, talent, and creativity blend together for a unique learning experience.
The Escolarian education is anchored on the university's twin philosophy, Ciencia y Virtud, science and virtue, the pursuit of knowledge guided by the highest ideals of humanity. The Escolarian education produces graduates who are empowered by timely knowledge and skills and inspired by timeless virtues to contribute to human and societal development.
My world moves virtually at the speed of light, spinning spirally in space towards a future that's full of promises, full of dreams. I choose to be real with my dreams. I choose to find myself in a place where my dreams are beautifully shaped and nurtured. A haven of true knowledge and light. A place where I learn to live my life.
Situated next to the Philippine seat of power. With campuses in the country's major hubs of business and commerce. Culture and history. Centro Escolar University is the place where the highest forms of human thought, talent, and creativity blend together for a unique learning experience.
The Escolarian education is anchored on the university's twin philosophy, Ciencia y Virtud, science and virtue, the pursuit of knowledge guided by the highest ideals of humanity. The Escolarian education produces graduates who are empowered by timely knowledge and skills and inspired by timeless virtues to contribute to human and societal development.
The University Convocation 2022.
Fellow Escolarians from CEU Makati. Siguro maya-maya siguro na konti. Ayan. Naririnig niyo po tayo. But kumakaway-kaway sila ngayon. And we are also joined this afternoon by our fellow Escolarians and friends from CEU Las Piñas. Ayan. And from the southern part of Metro Manila, ayan, kaway-kaway po, kaway-kaway. CEU Makati, CEU Las Piñas, kaway-kaway po. Ayun, kumakaway sila. And from the southern part of Metro Manila, all the way papunta roon sa Central Luzon, ang ating campus CEU Malolos. Ayan, ako. Full force po tayo ngayong hapong ito, ladies and gentlemen. So I know you're all ready. We are ready. So ladies and gentlemen, I welcome all of you once again to the University Convocation 2022. At this point, for her welcoming message, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our President and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Maria Cristina D. Padulina.
I think we should point out that in CEU Malolos, we don't only have the Centro Escolar University, but there also with them is the Centro Escolar Integrated School. So there's 5 entities. And also, well, yes, in CEU Manila, included there also is the Senior High School of CEIS. And in CEU Makati, we also have the Senior High School of CEIS. Greetings to everyone. Greetings of hope. The University Convocation is one that we hold to celebrate the founding of the Centro Escolar University. It is an event that happened 115 years ago. And just as a side, a trivia, you might say, we were founded on June 3, 1907. June 3. The World Environment Day, incidentally, is June 5. So had we celebrated this in June 3, this University Convocation, it would have almost coincided with the World Environment Day. But it's not too late to join the cause of the for the environment. Usually, during a Foundation Day celebration, we look back to our roots, to our past. In this year's celebration, we would like to look to our future. Usually also in university programs, I am asked to give a speech which is usually labeled as inspirational message. I requested that in this program, it simply be called an opening message. The inspiration will have to come, hopefully, from each and every one of us. In these opening remarks, I will also do something different. I would like to seek the help of others to deliver my message. This complements the collective action that we would like to spur in this convocation. Since we are still in a pandemic situation, allow me to start with the words of Bill Gates. And he says, as awful as this pandemic is, climate change could be worse. This warning from Bill Gates is very timely. We may have been so distracted by the dramatic loss of life and the unprecedented challenge to our way of life caused by the COVID-19 pandemic that climate change was thrown into the back burner of our minds. The next message comes from an actor turned environmentalist, Leonardo DiCaprio. And he says, climate change is real. It's happening now. It is the most urgent threat facing our entire species, and we need to work collectively together and stop procrastinating. In 2014, the UN Secretary General at that time, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, designated Mr. DiCaprio as a messenger of peace with a special focus on climate change. In the same year, DiCaprio also received the prestigious Clinton Global Citizen Award for his philanthropic work, largely in environmental protection programs. We should not need convincing, as our MC, Professor Ricky, said earlier, about the reality of climate change. What stronger reminders do we need than the more frequent, more severe, and more destructive weather conditions happening in our country, yes, but also all around the world? But let us read again the words of Leonardo DiCaprio. This time, focusing on the second part, that, and I quote, we need to work collectively together and stop procrastinating. Climate change is only one of our concerns. Along with biodiversity and pollution, these three constitute the trio of environmental emergencies. Just today, I read on CNN News that global wildlife populations declined by 69% since 1970. The report actually highlights the connection of climate change and biodiversity and pairs these two as a double emergency. In 2019, we launched the CEU Kalinga program. Kalinga stands for Kalikasan, Ingatan, at Alagaan. We called it then the CEU Environmental Program. As we relaunch it today, we insert one important word, action.
The time for words is past. The time for action is long overdue. So in this program, meron tayong action agad. And we will have a memorandum of understanding agreement signed with Father Ben Beltran here representing ang mga anak ni Inang Daigdig ambassadors. Notice the redundancy of DiCaprio's statement. He says, collectively together. Pag nagko-correct siguro yung ating mga English teachers dyan, sasabihin nila, redundant naman yan, doble-doble. This redundancy, I believe, is deliberate to give emphasis that the required work must involve different sectors of society and the world, and that the work must be concerted, planned, and carried out collaboratively. This then brings us to the words of John F. Kennedy. Our problems are man-made. Therefore, they may be solved by man. Hindi pa siguro malakas noon ang gender equality. So, medyo... our problems are human-made. Therefore, they may be solved by men and women. JFK may have been referring to non-environmental problems when he said those words, but they are most appropriate for our environmental problems. There is consensus that human activities and human influence are principal drivers of the environmental problems of the world. Kennedy's words suggest that if that is so, then the solution to those problems lies in us, human beings. We have looked at statements from influential persons, from a business magnate and a philanthropist, from an artist turned activist, and from a former US president. Let us turn to God's word. In chapter 1 of Genesis, verse 28, we read, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Continuing to chapter 2, we read, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. We need to be careful in interpreting Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, lest we read the verbs subdue and rule to mean to exploit the earth for our own ends. To subdue and rule the earth mean to tend and care for it, overcoming and taming those factors and elements that would impede at making creation productive. The instructions in Genesis chapter 2 are more clear. Work and take care of God's creation. We have been given stewardship over God's creation to make it productive while taking care of it. Today, we will listen to our speaker talk about our role as an educational institution in environmental protection. Thank you to Mr. Leandro Buendia for sharing his time and expertise with us. We shall also take this as an opportunity to relaunch our revitalized Kalinga program. Launched in 2019, its implementation was interrupted when we got distracted by the pandemic. As we emerge from this crisis, we frequently hear the phrase new normal. Several resets in our lives have taken place as a result of the pandemic. This is a reset of Kalinga. With its relaunching, we would like to make environmental action to be part of our new normal. We would like for the new program to be integrated, not just into instruction, but into our research and our community outreach activities. The original Kalinga program only included the Centro Escolar University community. The revitalized program will now include the other Centro Escolar schools. And I refer to Centro Escolar Integrated School and Centro Escolar Las Piñas. CEIS and CELP both have basic education programs. Our initiative, therefore, will span the entire education spectrum, from the preschool levels to higher education levels. The new Kalinga is now called Centro Escolar Kalinga. Thus, with us today are representatives of 5 entities. CEIS, some of them are here in this hall. Can we see your hands, CEIS? There we have them, and I'm sure they're also listening to us in Malolos. We also have representatives of CELP. Can we see the hands? CELP are here also, as well as in the CELP campus in Las Piñas. And of course, we have CEU Malolos, the college students there, and the senior high school students there, as well as those in Makati. We are joined in this forum through technology, but we are intertwined in our cause for our environment. Thank you to the team of Senior Vice President Teresa Perez for the relaunch of Kalinga. Thank you to the Presidential Committee on Culture and the Arts, headed by Dr. Olaer and Professor Ayran, for putting together this program, including the technical requirements of it, which is headed by Mr. Noel Aguilar and the TLTD crew. We also would like to thank cultural groups from our dancers, our singers, and our band. These 5 institutions that I mentioned have a common philosophy: ciencia y virtud, science and virtue. We shall apply our philosophy to our environmental cause. We shall promote scientific literacy about the environment and couple that with the development of our individual and collective values for its protection. We must apply both science and virtue in order to succeed. Before I forget, we also have, and we will involve, our CEU alumni, and we have representatives from CEU Alumni Foundation Incorporated here with us today. Thank you very much for your presence. Now, there may be a feeling of despair among us about the condition of the environment. The report I mentioned earlier, however, remains hopeful. The report in CNN says, and I quote, "While it finds the natural world near a tipping point, it also reiterates that immediate transformative action can slow and even reverse these devastating results." It is on this hopeful note that we relaunch the Kalinga program, expanded and revitalized. I would like to make the case of the environment a personal one for you and me, personally. In the opinion page of today's Inquirer is the column of Gideon Lasco, who incidentally is from Los Baños, like Andrew, our speaker, and me. His column, his piece is entitled The Healing Power of Forests. Mr. Lasco writes about what the conservationist Robert Pyle calls the extinction of experience. It is not only the flora and the fauna that is becoming extinct. So too is our access to nature, to green spaces. Findings in experimental psychology research indicate that being with nature reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, improves sleep, fosters physical activity, boosts the immune system, and enhances creativity, among other things. Let us demand from our government officials green spaces in our communities. And if it's possible, create our own, no matter how small. Today, in this convocation, we shall listen, and later we will be asked to make a pledge. We pray that our resolve will be matched by our action. Let our words and our deeds be in one accord. Let our deeds tomorrow match the words we say today. Kalikasan, ating ingatan at alagaan. Sa isip at sa puso. Sa salita at sa gawa. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much to our dear President and Chief Academic Officer of CEU, Dr. Maria Cristina D. Padolina. It's really not only a welcoming message, but an inspirational message at the same time. Now, at this juncture, we will have an interlude, ladies and gentlemen, a performance called Panata ng Bayan sa Kalikasan. Let's all welcome the CEU Folk Dance Troupe.
Sumusumpa ako Ngunit ang aking tinig ay nais kong marinig ng buong sambayanan upang ang sumpang ito ay maging panakap ng buong sambayanan. Isang sumpa na ating pag-uagasa na nagulat ang tunay na tulungan nawa ako ng may kamay. Tulungan nawa ako ng may kamay. Ng may kamay.
Thank you so much. Panata ng Bayan sa Kalikasan from CEU Folk Dance Troupe. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I now have the privilege to introduce our speaker this afternoon. Fellow Escolarians, ladies and gentlemen, this year's convocation speaker is an international climate change consultant on greenhouse gas inventories and national communications to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the UNFCCC. He is working from home, based in Los Baños, Laguna, Philippines. For almost 8 years, and that is from 1999 to 2007, he served as program officer of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, National Greenhouse Gas Inventory Program, Technical Support Unit based in Japan. He managed the development of the IPCC guidelines and good practice guidance for national greenhouse gas inventories in agriculture, forestry, and other land use sector. After this stint with IPCC, he then served as project coordinator of the UNFCCC USEPA project on regional capacity building project for sustainable national greenhouse gas inventory systems in Southeast Asia, where for 7 years, and that is from 2007 to 2014, he was involved in training Southeast Asian countries to develop a sustainable national GHG inventory system. This type of work continues up to the present by serving as senior consultant for projects funded by U.S. Environment Protection Agency, the USEPA, the USAID, the U.S. Forest Service, and Silva Carbon Project. In addition to Southeast Asian countries, he builds capacity on greenhouse gas inventories and climate change mitigation in South Asian countries, countries in the Asia Pacific, and some countries in Africa. Our speaker is currently a lead reviewer of UNFCCC for reports or national communications submitted by Annex 1 parties, also called developed countries. He is a member of the advisory committee to Germany-based Initiative for Climate Action Transparency. He is a former member of the National Panel for Technical Experts for the Philippine Climate Change Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Escolarians, join me in welcoming on stage our convocation speaker, Mr. Leandro Buendia.
Thank you, Ricky, for the introduction and the kind words. Before I start, I would like to first congratulate CEU for its 115th Foundation Day. And secondly, I would like to thank the organizer, in particular your president, Dr. Padolina, for inviting me to have a, for inviting me for this very, I would say, important event. This is part of my advocacy as an environmentalist and caring for the environment. So actually, when the dance troupe were dancing and they start removing their top cover, your president asked me, "What are they doing?" And then I said, "May, it's actually an introduction to the global warming. They're removing the dress because it's getting warm." And maybe so that could be the reason for that. So that's an introductory part of my talk. It's getting hot, and we need to do something about it. So thank you, Dance Troupe, for that very kind introduction about the topic. Okay, so let me start. Hold on, because I think my mouse is not working. Anyway.
Do you have problem with mic, sir?
No, the mouse, but it's okay. I can just press thank you. So let me start by having this slide. And this is actually the observation made by a very renowned columnist of New York Times. His name is Thomas Friedman, and maybe you are aware of him. He is the author of best-selling books like The World is Flat, Hot, Hot and Flat and Crowded. That's a book. And the most recent one I think that I bought is Thank You for Being Late. Okay, so this is from the book. And according to Friedman, there are three major forces of global change. The first is the technology, and that includes our internet technology, computer, information, artificial intelligence, biotechnology. And maybe a good example of that technology is the power of the microchips. According to Moore's law, maybe which you have heard, the power of the microchips doubles every 2 years. So you can imagine how powerful. Before, our computers were very slow, but now you will have a very computer which is very powerful in terms of processing data. And the second force is the globalization. And actually, that is the outcome of having these advances in technology. So with the digital environment, everything is being digitized. It's applicable to the market. You have the Alibaba, you have the Amazon.com, you have all these things. So we have a global market. You have financial, economic, political implications of the advances in technology. The problem, however, is that this technology advances and globalization associated with this is the impact on the environment, on the nature. And that's why we have this problem of climate change. Okay? And according to Friedman, these three forces, they're interlinked. And they're shaping the way we live, the way we work, the geopolitics, and also the problem is these three forces, they are accelerating at a very fast speed. Okay? So this afternoon, I'm not going to talk about technology, not going to about globalization, but I'm going to talk about the climate change. And for the next minutes, this will be my outline. I'll give you a brief definition of what climate change is all about, give you the two major areas of climate change so that you are aware of the two main divisions. What causes climate change? The greenhouse gases and their effects, the sources of and the trend in greenhouse gas emission, the global actions and local actions to combat climate change, and then I will conclude with the role of education institution in combating climate change. Please don't worry about the PowerPoint. We'll be giving you the copy of this one after the talk. Okay. So this is the body that is responsible for the study of climate change is what we call the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And actually, it is housed in Geneva, WMO, World Meteorological Office, but it has many technical units or technical support unit. One of those is the one I work with in Japan. According to IPCC, that's the acronym, based on their statistical analysis, climate change should conform with these two conditions, that the change should be with reference to the mean or variability. For instance, the average temperature, so the change in average temperature. And the second condition is that the changes should not be in a short time, should be in a longer time, like decades or longer. And a good example of climate change would be increase in global temperature or global warming. Marami sa atin na pag sinasabi climate change, akala nila global warming lang. Actually, that's only one of the form. There is another one, the second bullet. And it has something to do with the changes in pattern, intensity, and frequency of precipitation. Precipitation is rainfall. And this is simply, you can call it extreme events. Yung mga extreme events na nangyayari sa atin, sa ating mga ulan, sa ating bagyo is that under that classification, changes in pattern, intensity, and frequency of precipitation. Okay, very briefly, our president, she mentioned already some of the effects, but in passing, I'll give you an overview of the effects of the change in or the increase in the temperature. One is the melting of glaciers. You know, these glaciers, they're like in the Himalayas. They've been there for thousands of years. But because of global warming or the increase in temperature, they are melting. And the recent one is the one happening in Pakistan. In Pakistan, they have a big flooding there, not only because of the monsoon season, but also because the glaciers, they're melting and then going down the downslope, and they're affecting most of the areas in Pakistan. And so with the melting of glaciers, there's also potential that the water will be going into the sea, and then there will be a sea level rise. The second one, heat waves. Maybe you heard about what's happening in Europe. In France, for instance, I think last year and this year, they have heat waves. Many people died because of too much heat. And so there's a risk of respiratory problem and even for the energy consumption. Because of the high temperature, you have always to be in the cool room, air-conditioned room. Forest fire is also another one. So with the increase in temperature, the forests, they are prone to wildfire and burning. And also that will be, as a consequence, the loss in biodiversity, as mentioned also by the president. Also, the increase in temperature can impact also the yield of crops, like for rice and for corn, for wheat. And I remember in working at Erie, we have some studies there that an increase in temperature can reduce the yield by about 15% or so in some studies. So that is a threat to food security in essence. Warming of ocean. This will be associated with something like coral bleaching. So it will kill the coral reefs where the fish, that's actually the habitat of our fish. So that will kill the fish there, and then that will be a threat to food supply or food sustainability. Okay, what about the changes in precipitation? You have more frequent intense typhoon, and I have shown to you, for example, like we have Ketsana. Maybe I have to drink first. Hold on. Yeah, so we have, I think the The most common one is the Typhoon Haiyan or the Yolanda. And you can see the damage that it brought into the Philippines, 2.2 billion in terms of loss and damages. And we have more floodings and landslide. If you think about Ondoy, that was a long time ago. We have a big flooding in Metro Manila because of the Typhoon Ondoy. And in terms of also the change in precipitation, actually it's two things. You have more water, La Nina, or you have less water, El Nino. In this case, with the El Nino, you have drought. So that will affect the food supply. You have forest fire because of too much heat and no water. And also with the oversupply of water, La Nina, you can have malaria, dengue, cholera, and diarrhea. So those are the effects as an overview. Now, there are two major areas of climate change. And the first one is what we call climate change adaptation, which has something to do with the effect of climate change, the one that I showed to you. The second one is the climate change mitigation, which is the cause. So adaptation has something to do with how you can cope with the impact of climate change, whereas mitigation has something to do with reducing the anthropogenic intervention. I remember our president told about what Kennedy said. Our problem is actually human-made or man-made. Anthropogenic is meaning human intervention. So our problem actually is being re-echoed by this, that our problem is because of human activities. And mitigation has something to do with how you can reduce greenhouse gases from human activities. So please take note of this, because many people, they thought when you say mitigation, it's mitigating the impact. No, mitigation has nothing to do with disaster management. Mitigation has something to do with reduction of greenhouse gas emission. So please take note of that. Okay, so what causes climate change? I don't know what's happening here, but wait a minute. Something is, okay. Mr. Dodd. Okay, so I just want to show this graph. This is the change of global, this is the trend of global temperature from 1880 to the year 2020. And this one, just to emphasize, this is what we call the pre-industrial age, 1850 to 1900. And you can see the global temperature there, they're almost very close to the base year, which is zero. The deviation is very close to zero. After that, 1900 up to the year 2020, it is increasing in trend. Actually, 1900 is the beginning of the First World War. And then 1945, we have the end of the Second World War. So that's why you have this fluctuation, but it is going up during the industrial period. Maybe you will ask, what about what happened before the pre-industrial period? So what the IPCC did is to reconstruct the global temperature based on the paleoclimate archives, meaning data from tree rings, from ice corals, from oceans and lakes. So what happened, this is actually before the pre-industrial, you will have this fluctuation in global temperature, surface temperature, and it's not changing much. But the one in circle, the one in red, that's the one that I showed you in the last slide. And it's getting very high, very significant, this hockey trend. And it increased, if you check something like repair to the coordinate, you can see that for the year 2020, it has increased our global temperature has increased by almost 1 degree Celsius up to the present. 1.0 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is based on the 6th assessment report of the IPCC. It was launched in August 2021. And according to them, they concluded that human influence, this anthropogenic impact, has warmed the climate at the rate that is unprecedented in at least the last 2,000 years. And you can see the big effect. Let me drink first. Okay, so from this report, the IPCC also concluded that it is very clear that the human activities are causing the climate change, making extreme events, including heat waves, heavy rainfall, droughts, and a more frequent and severe. The IPCC also mentioned that unless immediate actions are made in reducing the greenhouse gas emission and limiting warming to 1.5 will be beyond reach. So our target is to at least to limit the warming. Remember the one I showed you, we're already 1 degree Celsius. And they said that it should be up to 1.5 because beyond 1.5, the impact will be irreversible. So I will go, this is 1.5, I'll give you the background of this later. Why 1.5? So maybe you will be asking me. I'll show later why 1.5. Okay, so, so what we're talking about greenhouse gases then, we have to reduce greenhouse gases. Ano ba yung mga greenhouse gases na yan? Ito yung tatlong main greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, nitrous oxide, N2O. Yang tatlong yan ang problema natin. And then, of course, we have other gases. Hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, sulfur hexafluoride, nitrogen fluoride, and others. But the three, these are the major ones. Ano ba, just to give you an idea, okay, ano ba ang nagiging epekto ng greenhouse gas na yan? So just to explain to you very simply, the sun, with the sunlight, dalawang forms ang sunlight natin. We have what they call the long wave radiation and the short wave. Yung short wave, hindi yan nakakarating kuminsan sa ating mundo. The long wave, magtatouch siya ng Earth, and then the heat will be absorbed by the Earth, and then part of the long wave will be released back to the atmosphere. Ideally, dapat ganon. Pero nangyayari because of the presence of greenhouse gases, this one, natatrap yung heat na dapat sana babalik sa atmosphere. So that's the, so what the greenhouse gases, they trap the heat and then keeping the earth warm. Kaya lalong umiinit ang mundo. And the more greenhouse gases you have in the atmosphere, the more problem you have in terms of warming. Okay. Ito naman, I just want to show to you how potent, how harmful these gases are. Meron kaming tinatawag na global warming potential. Ito yung measure kung gaano katinding epekto nila sa heating sa atmosphere. And this is based on the carbon dioxide. So meaning, carbon dioxide as a unit of warmth. Ang warming potential ng methane, but please take note, carbon dioxide can stay in the atmosphere for about 50 to 200 years. Matagal. Methane, it's only about 10 years, plus or minus, 12 years plus or minus 3. Madali lang ang buhay ng methane sa taas. Pero, ang methane ay 21 times more harmful than CO2. 21 times siya more potent than CO2 in terms of warming. Well, what about nitrous oxide? Nitrous oxide can stay in the atmosphere for 120 years. And it is 310 more potent than carbon dioxide. So please take note of that one. Because later I show to you saan ba nanggagaling itong mga carbon dioxide ito, saan ba nanggagaling yung methane, saan ba nanggagaling nitrous oxide and the other greenhouse gases. This graph is telling us, so you have the temperature trend from 1850 to 2010, and then you have the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere, and then you have the emissions of CO2, CH4, and N2O. What can you see? They have a direct relationship. Habang tumataas yung emission ng CO2 ng gases, tumataas din ang temperature, and they're quite highly correlated. So ganyan ang epekto. So we can say that emissions of these gases, they are impacting or influencing the trend in temperature. So let me discuss about saan ang gagaling yung mga gases na yan, very briefly. May tinatawag kaming, I'll deal it sectoral. Okay, we have 4 sectors. Energy, industry, industrial process actually, agriculture, forestry, and other land use, and waste. Sa energy sector, dalawang grupo yan. Tinatawag na fuel combustion activities. Ito yung mga, this includes yung mga emissions coming from power generation, electricity. Yung mga, kasi ang ating mga power plant, they're using coal or they're using diesel in order to produce energy. Okay? And then sa transport, of course, we are using diesel, gasoline, etc. And then in some cases, we have power plant, they're using biomass. What do you mean by biomass? Ito yung mga fuel wood. Yung mga panggatong natin, doon ang biomass ang tawag doon. So, itong activity na ito, they are emitting these gases, CO2, carbon monoxide. Pag sinunog mo, yung mga fossil fuels na yun, they will be emitting these gases. Yeah, CO2, carbon monoxide, methane, and then I mentioned non-methane volatile organic compounds. They are precursor also of the CO2 and CH4. Another subcategory in the energy sector is the fugitive emissions. Ito yung mga takas na emission ng tawag, but it has something to do with those emissions coming from coal mining. So pag minimina yung mga coal or in-extract yung mga oil, there will be CO2, CH4, and N2 escaping from the mines. So doon ang gagaling. One thing I want to emphasize here is that yung carbon na nanggagaling sa fossil fuel ay nanggagaling sa pinakailalim ng mundo. Ine-extraction, yeah? Ine-extract sa ilalim. Why I'm saying this? Because yung carbon sa fuel wood ay galing yung sa taas. Pag tumubo si puno, habang tumutubo siya, ina-absorb niya yung CO2 at yung carbon inalalagay niya sa kanyang biomass sa katawan, and then yun, ini-store niya. Okay? And then pag sinunog mo yung fuel wood, babalik yung carbon sa atmosphere, magiging CO2 ulit, paikot-ikot lang. That's what I'm saying. Pagdating dito sa fossil fuel, hinukay mo sa ilalim, yung kinumbas mo o binurn mo, pumunta sa atmosphere, dapat babalik doon sa pinanggalingan niya. Pero hindi nangyayari yun. No, naandun pa rin siya. That's the problem with the fossil fuel. Okay? Okay, so what we need to know, for every liter of diesel na inyong ginagamit, 2.68 kilogram of CO2 ang nire-release niyan. For every gasoline, mabababa ng konti, 2.31 kilogram CO2. For every coal, ito medyo matindi pero it's in tons. No? Consumed, that's about 2,419. And also LPG, mabababa ng konti, 1.51 kilogram. So what I'm saying, pag sinunog natin itong mga fossil fuels na yan, they are contributing a lot to the CO2 emission. Okay. Let me drink first. Ito naman sa industry. Sa industry, we have industrial process, we have mineral industry. Ito yung mga gumagawa ng simento, cement production, and glass production. So we have, I think, in the Philippines. So in this industry, they're emitting CO2 and CH4. Please take note. Chemical industry like ammonia production, nitric acid production, they're emitting, in addition to CO2, CH4, also the N2O because of the nitrogen content of the ammonia. Metal industry like iron and steel production, aluminum, please take note. Aside from the three major gases, lumalabas na dyan yung HFCs, PFCs, and SF6, the sulfur hexafluoride. Okay? And then, ato pa, sa industry, non-energy products from fuel, like lubricants, sa ating mga kotse, ginagamit, so they're emitting the production of those, they're emitting CO2, CH4, and N2O, and also the use. Electronic industry, they're emitting a lot from semiconductor voltaic production, emissions of these greenhouse gases. Product use for a substitute for depleting substance. Ito yung sa mga air condition natin, unit. They're emitting CO2, and please take note, diyan malalaki yung HFCs at saka PFCs. And remember the global warming potential, mas matitindi yung kanilang warming effect sa environment. Ato pa sa industry, medical applications, electrical equipment, take note, N2O, and also perfluorocarbons and SF6. And for the pulp and industry, paper and beverages, it's emitting CO2 and CH4. So what does it mean? Yung mga papel natin na ginagamit, please bear in mind, the production of those, they are emitting this CO2 and CH4. So what we need to know, for every ton of cement produced, it's about 1.25 tons of CO2 equivalent release. So 1 ton is about 1,000 kilograms. Okay? For every ton of steel produced, you have 1.85 tons of CO2 released to the atmosphere. The manufacturing average smartphone is estimated to create around 16 kilograms of CO2. Okay, please take note. For every ton of paper produced, about 0.7 to 11.8 tons of CO2. And according to some studies, for the bottled water, it's good that I'm not having my bottled water here. 500 ml of bottled water has a total carbon footprint of about 85 grams of CO2 for every 500 ml bottled water. Yan ang kinocontribute niya sa atmosphere. And this is the area of my interest where I work with. But let me explain to you, because for the Philippines, ito yung case natin dahil we are an agricultural country. So, let me start with the tree here. Tree. Alam ba nyo kung ilan ang carbon content ng wood? Mga kahoy na ito. You know what's the carbon content of that? It's 50%. About 47 to 50%. So, 50% of this wood is carbon. Okay? So, sa puno natin. Kaya napakahalaga ng puno. And that's why I was very happy when I heard you're planning to have this bamboo project. 50% of the bamboo in dry matter content is carbon. Okay? So, pag tumubo si bamboo o si puno, it is sequestering carbon from the atmosphere and then ini-store niya sa kanyang biomass. The problem is when you cut. Because when you cut, ang mangyayari, it's good kung nandito sa mga ganito, sa mga chairs natin. We call it harvested wood product. Nakatago yung carbon doon for so long. Pero pag sinunog mo yung wood, remember, that will contribute to these non-CO2 gases. CH4, NO, 2 N2O, NOx, carbon monoxide. Pag sinudog mo, labas lahat yan, pupunta sa atmosphere. Pag sinudog mo si kahoy. And then pag binulok mo si kahoy, the carbon will be oxidized, and then it will become carbon dioxide through the process of decomposition. So that's the challenge of the forest, of the wood in the forest. And then we have livestock. Livestock, we have two categories that we are monitoring. One is methane emission from enteric fermentation. Anong ibig sabihin? Sa tiyan na mga kalabaw at mga baka, mga ruminants, ay merong undergoing fermentation. Pag kumain sila, hindi lahat ay nadadigest. Hindi lahat ay nakakain ng ano. So nagpe-ferment sa katawan nila, and then the carbon, which is in the feeds, they're converted into, because of anaerobic condition, walang oxygen, nagiging methane. And then it's released to the atmosphere. So that's one, enteric fermentation, methane, enteric fermentation. Methane emission from enteric fermentation. There's another one in livestock, yung kanilang manure. Manure is a source of methane. Kung ilalagay nyo halimbawa mga liquid slurry, yung sa mga babuyan natin, di ba kung minsan nilalagay nyo sa mga ponds na may tubig, so that will be producing methane. Or, hinayaan mo, in-apply mo sa palayan, sa organic, sa soil, that will be releasing N2O because of the nitrogen content of the manure. So yung dalawang yon is from the livestock. Rice is one. Rice cultivation is producing methane. Rice production. For so long, Philippines has 4 million hectares, I think, of rice. So it's emitting methane from rice cultivation. And another thing, application of fertilizer. Application of fertilizer, like maybe you're aware, urea. Urea is 45% nitrogen. So pag in-apply mo sa urea as fertilizer sa soil, nag-a-apply ka pa lang, may emission na. Because 20% of that is volatilized, going up to the atmosphere, and then yung 80% nung in-apply mo, going down to the soil, hindi lahat nakakain ng halaman yon. About some percentage will be leached, and then will go to the groundwater, and then it will go to the river, and then babalik sa atmosphere. Tawag namin doon ay indirect N2O emission. So, yan sa agriculture. Yan umiikot yung mga emission. So please take note, sa puno, magandang role niya. Sa animals, emission sa enteric fermentation at saka sa manure. Application ng fertilizer. Kailangan natin mag-apply ng fertilizer because of our requirement for food supply. But the consequences is it's emitting a lot of N2O. And please note, N2O is very potent, 310 times the CO2. And last is what we need to know. Just to give you an idea. So, this is tawag namin dito is yung carbon accumulation of potential carbon accumulation sa pagtatanim natin ng puno. If you talk about tree planted in tropical rainforest, about 6.5 tons of carbon in its above ground biomass are sequestered. So pag nagtanim ka ng puno, lalo sa tropics, it can sequester up to 6.5 tons of carbon per year. For every kilogram of urea na ina-apply mo, 1% will be released as N2O. And then for every non-dairy cattle that is raised for meat, about 55 kilograms of methane are emitted per year. I think parehas din yan sa kalabaw natin, sa buffalo. And for every hectare of flooded rice field, about 1.3 kilogram of methane are released per day. So please take note of that one. And lastly, we have the waste sector. Ito yung ating how we manage our waste. And just to give you an idea, yung mga solid waste natin, they're potential source of methane and N2O. Kung susunugin mo naman, that will be a potential source of non-CO2 gases like CH4 and N2O, and CO2 of course, and then kahit sa wastewater treatment, that will be a source of these gases, CH4 and N2O. So what we need to know, according to some studies, about 1/3 of the food we produce is never consumed, and most often goes into waste, leading to emission of CH4 and N2O. So please take note. Okay, maybe you will ask, so alin bang malaking contributor pagdating sa, if you talk about the sectors? This is a breakdown of take note, this is not for the Philippines, this is global. Buong mundo. In 2014, based on the IPCC report, and emissions from energy production, power production, transportation, at saka yung building, actually energy sector yan. And it's about 55%. Agriculture, 24. Industry, 21. Yung other energy, kasama sa energy sector. Wala dyan yung waste, meaning maliit lang for time being. Pinakamalaki talaga ay energy sector, particularly in generating power and transport. And then you will ask me maybe, ano naman bansa ang malaki ang contribution? China, in 2017, it's contributing 30% of the total global emission, followed by United States, 15%. EU countries, 9%. Sa Pilipinas, nandun tayo sa others, 30%. Okay, going local. So maybe you will ask, ano ba ang ating contribution? Maliit lang po ang ating contribution. Less than 1% ang ating contribution. Based do sa report na sinasabit natin sa UNFCCC. What I want to emphasize here, makikita nyo ang main emitter natin, say, based on the 2010 inventory, ay energy sector. Kasama dyan yung power generation at transport. When I say transport, land transport, navigation, at saka yung aviation, yung airplane. Kasama dyan. But please take note, this one is land use change and forestry. Ang ibig pong sabihin natin dyan, yung nasa parenthesis, ang ating forest ay hindi nag-i-emit ng CO2. Ang ating forest noong 1994 was a carbon sink of 126 gigagram of CO2. Pagdating ng year 2000, tumaas ng malaki, 105,111. Sa 2010, invento namin bumagsak ulit for some reason, because of deforestation going on in the country. But what I want to emphasize here, yung role ng ating forest is very important. Kasi pag nagre-report kami sa UNFCCC, dalawang total niyan, with LUCF and without LUCF. So kung makikita niyo kung wala yung role ng forest, pataas ang ating emisyon. 100, 126, 144. Pero pag ibinawas mo yung sequestration from forest, bababa yung ating emission. So that's the implication of that. That's how important the forest is. Okay. There are two things I want to emphasize in this graph. One is you can see the trend in the CO2 concentration from the pre-industrial period up to the future. In the pre-industrial, the concentration of CO2 was only 278 ppm. You're talking about year 1850 to year 1900. In year 1990, tumaas from 278, naging 350 ppm. Pagdating ng April 2018, naging 410.31 ppm. So you can see big difference, but maybe you can ask, so dito, show you, June 2022, 420, tumaas. Eh bakit yung August, 417, bumaba, same year, 2022. Bakit kaya? You know why? So, let me answer that. It's because of this killing curve. There is an annual cycle of CO2. May annual cycle yan sa isang taon. And this is how it goes. Especially sa temperate countries. If you talk about the northern part, Finland, Canada, Russia, maraming puno dyan. Pagdating ng springtime, tumutubo yung mga puno na yan. So, ibig sabihin, binabalik nila yung kanilang mga leaves, no? So, habang binabalik nila mga leaves nila, nagsisequester ng carbon. Nilalagay nila sa katawan nila. Hanggang dumating yung fall. Pagdating ng taglagas dito sa may October, kaya nangyayari, bumababa yung ganon kasi kinukuha ng puno. Pagdating ng fall, babagsak na naman si carbon, madidecompose na naman, magiging CO2 babalik. Kaya nagkakaroon ng annual cycle. That's the role of the trees again. Nakikita niyo kung gaano importante ng role ng forest, ng trees. My second question is this. 2022, 417. What do you think will be by the year 2100 if we do business as usual? Meaning, walang intervention, walang mitigation ang gagawin, walang reduction ng tuloy-tuloy ang pagputol ng puno, tuloy-tuloy ang paggamit ng fossil fuels. What do you think will happen year 2100? Big question, isn't it? So let me share with you the scenario made by the IPCC. So sa kanilang 6th assessment report that I've showed to you, launched in August 2021, ganito yung mga posibleng mangyari, future scenarios ang tawagan. So yung una, they called it emission scenario of shared economic pathways scenario. Just a background for this, when we developed this scenario, we took into consideration population, global population, technological development, and economic growth, the gross national product and the gross domestic product. So, ito ang senaryo na pwede mangyari. Merong tinatawag na most optimistic scenario. The first one, SS1 1.9. And then ito yon, ito yung epekto sa baba. Ang ibig sabihin ng most optimistic, ang target natin is to maintain yung increase ng temperature by only 1.5 by the year 2050. So pagdating ng 2050, dapat hindi lalampas sa 1.5 degrees Celsius ang taas, ang itinaas ng ating temperatura. Ano ibig sabihin nun? The implication, we will have to do severe cut in emissions and aiming it to net zero by 2050. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng net zero? You have any idea? Pag sinabing net zero, kung ano yung binubuga mo, dapat yun din ang ina-absorb mo. Ibig sabihin, kung nagbubuga ka sa cars na emission, yung puno mo, dapat nagsisequester naman ng carbon. So you have emission and then sequestration. So emission minus sequestration is zero. Yan ang ibig sabihin ng net zero emission. Kung anong iyong binubuga sa atmosphere, dapat ganun din ang iyong sinisequester. That is very challenging in terms of developing countries. Pero yan ang target. Okay? And if we can do that, by the year 2050, okay na tayo. Net zero. And then by the year 2100, it will be negative emission. Meaning, mas maraming ating nasisequester kaysa nai-emit. Okay? Which is good for the environment. The second choice is next best. Target is 1.8 degrees Celsius increase. Instead na 1.5, okay, taasan natin ng kaunti, 1.8. And then there will be also a cut severely in terms of the emission by 2050. So mangyayari, magkakaroon lang ng delay ng kaunti kasi baka mahirapan tayo globally. So mangyayari sa halip na 2050, maaring ang net zero natin ay umabot ng mga 2075. Net zero. And then by 2100, negative emission. There is also what we call the middle of the road scenario. And that's 2.7 Celsius by 2100, ang increase niya, 2.7. Ito naman, is something like, okay lang, we stay a little while. Let's wait, let's delay it, let's hover around. And then, starting maybe in the mid-century, we start cutting emissions. So delay in emissions. So that, this one is this one. So, yeah, at least pababa. Pero hindi tayo magne-net zero. Hindi siya pupunta sa net zero. That's the problem. Okay. Ngayon, just for your information, ang agency na involved na tumututok sa climate change ay ito. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Nakabase to sa Germany. Sila yung mga nagpapatawag, nag-organize ng meeting, Conference of the Parties, kung tawagin. Remember natin yung mga Paris Agreement, Kyoto Protocol, sila nag-ano niyan. And then next meeting will be in Egypt in November. That will be COP 27. So, narinig na ba niyo yung Kyoto Protocol at saka Paris Agreement? I'll give you an idea of it. Sorry. Kyoto Protocol ay, of course, ginawa yan sa Kyoto, sa Japan, in 1997. The target of that Kyoto Protocol is to reduce global emissions by 5% against the 1990 level, meaning yung emission na 1990 globally, babawasan ng 5%. Okay? Pero, hindi lahat ng countries involved doon sa Kyoto Protocol. 37 industrialized countries lang doon. Ang problema pa, hindi pumirma ang US. So, hindi kasama ang US doon. Okay? So, natapos na ang Kyoto Protocol, commitment period hanggang 2 beses ginawa, may phase 1 and phase 2, natapos ng 2020, yung Kyoto Protocol. Ang sinasabi ng ibang bansa, ng marami, hindi pwedeng kami lang. Dapat lahat tayo. Yeah, yan ang issue sa negotiation eh. So, 2015, they agreed. Paris Agreement. Lahat should be involved. Ang target, as much possible, i-maintain lang natin hanggang 2 degrees Celsius ang increase, and kung kaya, 1.5. Kaya narinig niyo 1.5 target. And then, lahat ng countries, lahat ng pumirma sa UNFCCC will be involved. We are talking about 198 countries here. And then, ang unang agreement, magsasubmit kayo ng tinatawag na nationally determined contribution. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Ano yung maipapangako na pwede nyo ibawas sa inyong bansa? How much reduction can you contribute sa inyong bansa? Okay? So tayo, sa Pilipinas, ito ang nag-coordinate ng report. Nag-develop tayo, we have a Climate Change Commission. So please take note of that. Meron tayong Climate Change Commission sa Pilipinas. Sila ang nakatutok sa issue ng climate change. And then, sila ang nag-organize ng pagde-develop ng report na nationally determined contribution. And ang ating target, according to that, submitted in April 2021, on April, is we have to reduce, we are targeting 75% reduction for the period 2020 to 2030, and that will be coming from agriculture, the waste, industry, and transport, and energy. And then, I just want to emphasize, yung role ng forest ay hindi kasama sa target natin. Nasa adaptation siya, kasama. But there's a co-benefit. Pag sinabi natin, pag nagtanim ka ng puno, actually there are co-benefits of doing that. You will have a good air, good soil, and at the same time, sequestering carbon. So with time, pwede mong ibawas doon sa target mangyayari. So yun ang plano. Okay? Now, I come to the last part. And that's, I think, my role is how can you contribute? How can you contribute? And I'm very happy to hear from your president, from those people I talk with, na may mga programa na kayo, and they are planning to launch this Kalinga Environment Education Program. So I think for education institutions, you will play a big role in changing the mindsets of the people. I think I think we should emphasize that the link between the market economy, the technology, with the mother nature should be harmonized. Yeah, we are, I think, abusing our mother nature because of the technology that we have and also with the globalization. So they have to be harmonized. We cannot afford anymore to have an unsustainable development. So that's one thing. I think so. That's the mindset that we are talking about. And I think education will play a big role in teaching your students on about the issue of climate change. What I did this afternoon, I just gave you an overview, yeah, of what climate change is all about, the impacts, the sources of the emissions. You know aware already where the emissions are coming from. So you can have an idea on how you can contribute in terms of, but I would like to emphasize that energy is the main culprit and the use of fossil fuels globally is the main culprit. And so that's why we are trying as much as possible. What we can do is to replace the use of fossil fuels, replace it with renewable energies like solar, energy, wind energy, ocean tidal waves energy coming from geothermal energy. I think Philippines is second to that in terms of production. And so these are the renewable energies that we can think of. And education is crucial in promoting the climate action. So I think for CEU, you can be an instrument in promoting the mindset. You can be an instrument in having a better understanding of the issue. And you can be an instrument in supporting climate actions globally and locally, like what I mentioned to you about the plan of the Climate Change Commission. And finally, I'd like to end my talk with this one. And I think this is consistent with what your president is saying. John F. Kennedy mentioned that our problem is man-made, and it's actually man-made. And we have to act now. There is no plan B. Plan A is to act now, to have a net zero emission before it is too late. And I would like to quote the quotation from Margaret Mead. Never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I believe that if we can work together, collectively together, as Leonardo DiCaprio mentioned, I think we can heal the earth and also heal the future. So thank you, and I hope you gain from it. Yeah.
So, maraming salamat. Isa pa po, another round of applause to our speaker, Mr. Leandro Buendia. Wow. Tingnan niyo po yung notes ko. Yan. The notes. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing that. We'll just set up because we now have an opportunity to ask some important questions. And, the presentation of Sir Leandro alone is a call to action. It's not only informative, but it's really a call to action. Sir, ang dami kong tanong pero marami tayong pagbibigyan po ngayon. Sana maipatuloy natin ang discussion sa radio. Dali lang, sir. You will be all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, for this open forum, of course, we'll be joined by CEU Manila, Makati, yung kaninang nakita po ninyo, and Malolos, and of course, our CEU Integrated School. Okay? So, sir, because I have the privilege,
Go ahead.
nawala yung microphone. Dali lang, sir. I'll just put this here. Alam niyo, sir, pagka host moderator, lagi may pribilehiyong magtanong ng unang tanong. So, I'll throw the first question. Okay, napaka-informative, sir, no? But I really got interested sa mga huling points. And siguro yung mga estudyante nating nanonood ngayon at nandito, masakit sa brain cells, no? Masakit sa brain cells. Sir, yung role, doon ako diretso to provide context kasi sigurado ito yung magiging tanong later. You said that the primary role of the academe is to change the mindset. My first question would be, how about changing the mindset of our policymakers? because we're dealing here parang with common individuals, but clearly, klaro, na ang laki ng papel na ginagampanan ng policymakers on this, sir.
Thank you. That's a good question. And to answer that, I think, it should start from the bottom, meaning the students like you. You are, the decisions that you have now will determine our future. And I think if you collectively raise your voice and say to the policymakers, hey, you have to do something. You have to care for our future. And it should start from the awareness of the people, so that policymakers will be warned and then they will be reminded that you have to do and act now.
Tsaka, sir, you are very active on research.
Yes, sir.
And I think one of the ways is to inform policymakers of their policies scientifically. Okay, baka pumapasobra kasi sabi ko sa inyo, dami kong notes, so I'd like to hear, sino bang unahin natin? From CEU Manila, maybe? May microphone po ba tayo dyan sa gitna? So our students and staff can ask question. Opo. Ready lang po yung mga taga CEU Makati po natin. I know you're hearing us. And CEU, Centro Escolar Las Piñas, and of course our CEU Malolos. May I know who's ready now to throw another question? Sir, you mentioned a while ago about forests, no? Grabe yung notes ko rito. And actually, my first question kanina nung bago yung lecture mo is where we are now. Nasaan na tayo ngayon? And you gave us a glimpse on this. But if you will rate, for example, 1 to 10, 10 is the highest. Anong grade mo sa ginagawa natin ngayon, sir, to fight climate change?
Okay, that's quite a very challenging question. But globally, in terms of we have now, so we have the Paris Agreement. That's actually the Bible of the reference of the actions that all countries should be doing. So, in the context of this Paris Agreement, lahat ng bansa by the year 2024 December, they have to submit their inventory of emissions and removals per each country. Like the Philippines, we will be submitting, okay, we are emitting 100,000 gigagrams, for instance, of CO2. And then China says, okay, we are emitting this much. So magkakaroon ng tinatawag na stock taking in terms, okay, na-reduce na ba natin yung, kasi corresponding to the 1.5 is the emissions associated with it. So are we lowering our emissions based on the stock taking? So what we are now, countries are now preparing their actions for climate change. And that by the year 2024, we will be required to submit this, what we call biennial transparency report, where we'll be indicating the progress of what they were doing in terms of achieving and implementing our target. So, nandun na tayo. So, all countries, they're busy preparing the report. There are capacity buildings being done. There are also sun funds provided, the green funds, for instance, for those countries to build the capacity on how to develop action programs and, how to estimate emissions. So, ganun ang scenario.
Sabi mo, sir, 30% sa China galing. I wonder gano'n ka laki yung commitment ng China.
That was in 2017. So, but I think that changed because of the pandemic. There could be some changes now because, it's quite interesting events we have now. After the pandemic, it impacted the economy. And then we have this Ukraine war that's also impacted. Actually, the nice thing with Ukraine war, the price of gasoline and diesel, they went up. And because of that, we are limiting the use of our fossil fuels. Diba? So I would say the environment, the atmosphere is quite happy. Because kung mura ang ating gasolina at diesel, ay gamit tayo ng gamit at biyahe tayo ng biyahe. But now, because it's mahal, and then kakaroon ng reduction. Pandemic, it's very significant what happened. There was a big reduction in global emission because of the pandemic. Dahil tayo mostly nasa bahay lang, hindi tayo nagbibiyahe.
Malaking bagay.
Yes.
Kasi sabi mo, sir, yung energy sector, yung malaki talaga. Transportation is
The challenge is how to replace this fossil fuel with
Yes, sir.
renewable energy.
Okay, let's open the floor. Sino pong may tanong sa atin? Maybe yung ating friends from Makati? Meron po bang ready na to ask question kay Sir Leandro from our friends, fellow Escolarians from CEU Makati?
Huwag kayong mahiya. Pwede magtanong sa Tagalog ng para ako.
Opo. Kasi masakit talaga din sa ulo, sir. Kaya yung lingwahe din. When I was reading your profile, sabi ko, hindi kaya isipin dito ng mga bata na you are working in an alien community. Kasi medyo, ano po mga international yung agencies. Sino po? May ready na? Okay, yan. From CEU Malolos. Go ahead. Please, your name and your program, please.
Hello po. Good afternoon po. Marvin Delara po from the BS Pharmacy Program of CE Malolos po. As a student, I've been facing a lot of studies din po naman talaga sa climate change. And one of the problems na nahihirapan akong hanapan ng sagot is yung pagdedemand natin sa mga large companies on how they could hugely impact yung sa pag-help natin sa climate change. So my question is, ano po ba yung mga large-scale actions na pwede natin i-demand sa mga large companies, since yung small actions po natin, collectively, although nakakatulong, pero definitely mas malaki yung sense kapag companies na po yung patulong natin sa paggawa. So ano po ba yung pwede mga large-scale movements na pwede natin i-encourage or i-demand from the companies po sa across the world po?
Ricky, I'm sorry.
Me as well. But the way I got the question, sir, parang can you give us a guide para sa mga large companies? Kung tama ako kasi not so clear yung audio pero yung we know na large companies kasi are really ito yung malalaking mag-emit na greenhouse gases. So maybe a guideline kung kakaintindi ko po that you can propose to them. Guidelines.
Well, so mitigation, pag-develop kung halimbawa anong action ang ating dapat gawin. Katulad ng pinakita ko kanina, nakita niyo ang main sources ng emission sa Pilipinas. So, we concentrate not on the low-hanging fruits. Yung mga maliliit lang, pag nireduce man, maliliit lang impact niyan But if you concentrate on the big sources, like energy sector, power generation, malaking impact niyan. And we call them key categories. Ito yung mga major contributors. So I suggest, if you really want to reduce significantly, you concentrate on the key sources, the main contributors. And that's what I showed you. Energy sector, deforestation is one. Nakita nyo, if you remember, 1994, carbon sequestration tapos bigla na lang bumagsak because of deforestation, what's happening in the country. But if we can maintain our forests, I think that will be something. And it also helps the environment. About landslide and flooding in some areas, it's because of the deforestation going on in the country.
Thank you, sir. So thank you. Were you satisfied with the question? Yeah. Response pala. Okay, so I think we have somebody you Makati. Hopefully the audio will become very clear.
Hello po. Hello po. Hello po. I am Leandro from Makati. May tanong lang po. In the Philippines po, how can you encourage students to combat climate change kung ang educational system ay hindi na level? Ay paano niyo po ma-encourage?
I think we cannot, the audio is not clear. Sir Jun, can we fix this a bit? Medyo hindi ka namin masyadong nagkirinig, hindi na iintindihan ni Sir yung question.
Hello po, okay na po ba?
Can you try? Sige nga.
Hello, okay na po.
Sige, go ahead.
Hello po. Yung tanong po is, how can you encourage students to combat climate change kung ang education system ay hindi na? Ano naman yung kaya nila na imagine mo ako po ng mga na ipapapagod ng mga puno ng mga puno or sa pagkakapo ng mga earth kung sa mga pero hindi ko wala para
Really clear. May I just propose, Sir June, the question to us so that we can ask the question to Sir, no? Yeah, yeah, Sir June. And maybe someone from the audience here now
That's
can
good, yeah.
ask first the question po. Yeah, you can just give the question to the Manila people, ano, so that it can be asked. Okay. Meron po from Manila? Okay.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. I do have a question. You've mentioned about the net zero earlier about your talk. Is it a net zero uh, achievement? And in terms of local, what is this? Our local action plans, where are we with the current trend we have?
When you say local, it means what? The academic
No, I
community
mean the local status of the country.
in the Philippines.
Mhm.
All right. So maybe he wants to you to elaborate. Nasa na tayo ngayon, sir? Yung mitigation actions in the Philippines. Is that okay? Oh, what's your name? Sorry, sir.
And then if it's feasible, net zero emissions.
Okay.
That's it.
Net zero
Okay.
emission.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, so yung first question, as I mentioned, nagsabit na tayo ng ating pledge or target through the nationally determined contribution. So we submitted it to UNFCCC na, okay, ganito ang target namin, 75% reduction between 2020 and 2030 for these sectors, including agriculture, transport, and etc. So yun ang ating commitment. And then we will be check whether we are complying of that. Kaya nire-require ng UNFCCC, we have to submit biennial report. Every 2 years, magsasubmit tayo ng report. And then hindi basta magsasubmit, you will have, it has to be reviewed by the expert. Ano nang ginagawa namin? Ako, ginagawa ko yan sa development. So I reviewed the Czech Republic, I reviewed New Zealand, I reviewed Sweden, Portugal. So kung they are complying with the requirements. So, ganun. Sa ngayon, nasa target pa lang tayo, but we have already action plans na in line with the nationally determined contribution. So, nakalinya na lahat. All we need to do is to implement and then monitor and then we have to report what we are doing. So, yun ang I think ang ano ng status natin. We have the Climate Change Commission in charge of doing that. And I think they're doing consultations already with line agencies. So they consult the energy sector, the Department of Energy, the Forest Management Bureau. So yeah, so nandun na tayo. I think we are okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so meron po ba? Sir, ako, just a follow-up, no? You mentioned about planting of trees, for example. Ang ganda ng sa puno, no? 50%, for example, bamboo tree, na siya po nating ilo-launch mamaya. In terms of how schools, for example, participate in this, kasi ito yung mitigation eh. How are schools doing? How are schools doing sa pagpaparami ng puno, for example, sa ganyang part? Or are the schools aware of this reality na yung kahalagahan ng puno?
So first point, I think that's a good thing. If you remember, before this administration, they have this national greening program that's under the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And then in that program, they're targeting to plant 1.5 million hectares all over the country. And that includes the planting of bamboo. And so if you will be able to support planting of bamboo in many areas, that will contribute to the sequestration of carbon in the country. And that can be accounted for or added in the inventory that we are doing. Something like if we have a plan by the year 2030, we will be planting this much hectareage, because for every our estimate is based on the hectareage. How many hectares have you planted? And then we have to take into account how fast the bamboos are growing, because as they grow, they accumulate carbon. Like for instance, in the tropic, it may be around for the big trees, it's about 11 tons of dry matter per per hectare per year. Maybe for bamboo, it will be less. But as they grow and then, bamboo will be less. But if you plant a lot, so that will be also a lot, I think.
Okay, do you have other questions? Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. We are from CEIS Makati. And our question is, what are the practical ways that students as young as senior high school can do to help address the problem in greenhouse gases?
Okay. Thank you for your question. And to answer that, I think my first request to you is to convey the message that I have here. Mainly in terms of what are those, activities or sectors that are contributing to emission. Because if they have that knowledge, yung palang pag-generate ng kuryente natin, nag-i-emit yun ng marami CO2. Ano ibig sabihin nun? We have to reduce the consumption of our energies, We have to be efficient in terms of our energy use, energy efficiency. And then, mataas pa lang, we're contributing if we use our cars, and then, so we have to limit the use of fossil fuels as much as possible. So, those are the things. And then, maybe another, for the agriculture, mataas pala ang, if you apply fertilizer, urea, N2O, 310 more potent than carbon dioxide, maybe we have to reduce our, application of fertilizer. And then maybe going organic. But of course, you cannot totally replace the fertilizer with the organic. No, it's impossible in my view. You have to balance it. So what I'm saying is, you already know the sources. I would encourage you to convey it to your friends, to your, to your father or mother. Say, ito pala yung mga pinanggagalingan ng emissions. Let's start doing it, where we can, we can reduce it from the family to the community. At tulad na sinabi ni Dr. Padune, collectively together. This cannot be solved by only one person. This cannot be solved by only one country. It has to be solved by all countries involved. Yeah.
Thank you po.
Mhm.
Okay, other question? Meron pa po? Sige. From the... Where? Saan po ito? Malolos ba? Okay. How can you encourage students to combat climate change if some of the educational system in the Philippines is not effective? From John Ardapi Abi of CU Makati. Tough question.
Well, it's a tough question. But to tell you, I am a positive person. I'm more of a positive thinker. I don't use no, I don't use not. So if that's your view, I think I would encourage you to change it. Build upon what is good in the institution and then support it. That's how I will answer. I am not the one to judge how ineffective but you can be an instrument of change. You can be an instrument of having a good institutional system. And I would encourage you to be on that side, not on the other side. Okay?
Tsaka yung academic institution, hindi siya yung nasa front. Talaga, no? Although we play a very significant role, hindi siya nasa front. Tama ba yun, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Sige po.
It will be an instrument, I think.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
mind setting is very important for education.
That's right.
Yeah.
I agree, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, kanina, mineasure ninyo with intergovernmental panel. Ang ganda nung nakita namin kanina, yung nasaan na tayo by 2100. Okay? And you have been mentioning about human factor dito, na para bagang ang dating, habang pinakikinggan ko po ay, mas savage ba tayo sa industrial age kaysa sa ancestors natin in taking care of the environment? Pero, so, mini-measure nyo din po ba yung ating action? Kung paano ang aksyon ng tao towards that period, nasaan tayo?
Yeah.
Na-measure nyo din po yun?
Okay, ganito yan. So, as I mentioned, yung emissions nito, they are anthropogenic, human-induced.
Okay.
Lahat ng activities natin lahat ng activities natin should be accounted for in terms of emissions. Kaya dinivide namin by sector yan. Pero within sector, doon pumapasok yung human activities. Like yung activity mo sa transport, yung paggamit mo ng gasolina, ng fossil fuels, nandun yung human activity, yung human influence, di ba? Yung pagpuputol mo ng puno, it's human activity. So doon papasok yan. So lahat actually is because is man-made. it's based on human activity. It's anthropogenic. It's not natural. And yeah, so doon na pumapasok yung human intervention, and then doon pumapasok yung sinasabi mo na we account for the influence of human being doon sa parte na yun. Although ginawa namin sectoral, but it's based on human activities. Okay? I hope I answer your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just reminded kasi tuhong nakaraang bagyo, for example, na naging sentro ng balita ang Sierra Madre Mountains, for example, because you mentioned a while ago about the harmony, the marrying of economy and taking care of nature. But right now, there are so many projects there, the dam projects, kaliwa, kanan. I have been interviewing people who are opposing to this. Yun po yung sinasabi. So I was just reminded of that.
That's right. The problem we have now is the advance in technology and the advance in globalization is not in harmony with the mother nature. It's not in harmony. It's being abused. So mas matindi yung extraction natin sa natural resources kasi sa pinuproduce ng mother nature. So that's why we have to caution, we have to, kaya nga sabi ni Thomas Friedman, thank you for being late.
Yeah.
You have to slow down, you know? Slow down. Otherwise, that 2100, it's very scary for me.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that as well.
And we're doing this not for ourselves, not for Dr. Padulina and myself, our generations.
Yes po.
It will be for your generations, Apunyo.
Yeah.
Because by that time, 2150, 2100, maybe we're already gone. But you will still be here. And you will be battering the adverse impact of these heavy rains, typhoons, drought, and etc. So,
Sir, it also begs the question, is there really a way, an effective way to marry economic growth and taking care of technology? Because you've mentioned about globalization.
that's the role of policies and measures.
Yeah.
If we have the right policies and measures, meaning implementation is right, and then I think there's no other way but, we can solve the problem. We have to develop good policies. I think we should learn from the past. We know already that we did it wrongly. But now we have to do it right. We have to do it right. Otherwise, it's a pity. Yeah. We are already experiencing a lot.
Yeah.
Typhoons, floodings, so that's really quite scary.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Sidre S. Cruz po from CEIS Malolos. Our question is, besides educating students to take the first step in helping our planet, what do you think are realistic actions or feasible actions that we students can do to help our planet heal?
Okay. First one is support the Kalinga program.
Very nice.
I think, you are in the university and planting of bamboo, as I said to you, forestry play a big role in combating climate change because it's sequestering carbon, CO2. So support those kind of programs. And then second will be, as much as possible, conserve energy in all aspects, because the main culprit of this problem we have is the fossil fuels that's being used to generate energy and also for our movement. But, it's not sustainable. So energy efficiency, support reforestations, and of course your waste, as you see, it's a source of methane and N2O, but it's very small as compared to the big ones. So that, I would suggest, support Kalinga.
Support Kalinga.
Thank you for that.
Mamaya, magsasign ka. Thank you very much. Again, a round of applause to Mr. Leandro Buendia, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you sa lahat po ng nagtanong kay Sir kanina. And I think I have to call on, sir, you please remain on stage, our President and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Maria Cristina Padulina, and our Chairperson of the Presidential Committee for Culture and the Arts, Dr. Carlito B. Olaer, for the awarding, sir, of your certificate. Sir? Dito, sir. Opo. I just read the certificate. Centro Escolar University Presidential Committee on Culture and the Arts. Certificate of Appreciation is given to Leandro Buendia, speaker, for sharing his expertise as international climate change consultant during the university's annual convocation with the theme Engaging Education in the Fight Against Climate Change, held on October 14, 2022 to 30 p.m. at the Librada Avelino Auditorium, Centro Escolar University, Manila. Signed by our President, Maria Cristina D. Padulina. Sir, picture taking, please. Thank you, Sir Leandro Buendia. Thank you, Dr. Padulina, and thank you, Dr. Olaer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will have another interlude to perform Circle of Life from the musical Lion King. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEU Singers, Manila. Excellent performance. Ladies and gentlemen, Circle of Life from the musical Lion King, performed by CEU Singers Manila. Dali lang po, hindi ako makalabas dito eh. Katabi-tabi sila. Thank you, ang galing. Ladies and gentlemen, how about another round of applause to CEU Singers Manila? Goosebumps. Really. Nakakatindig balahibo. Kanina pa po na-mention ang Kalinga. Kanina pa po siya na-mention. So at this juncture, may I call on our Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Teresa Arperez, to give us the overview of Centro Escolar Environmental Action Program.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I am very delighted to see all of you in this auditorium and in our Student Activity Center present for our University Convocation and the launch of Kalinga. Of course, we are led by our University President, Dr. Maria Cristina Padolina, and the Administrative Council are all here. The deans are here. May I see the hands of the deans? Yes, they are there. Thank you for coming. And then we have the academic department heads. Where are they? They are there. Very good. Thank you also. Ayun, nagtaas pa sa likodan pa. Yes, thank you for coming this afternoon. And of course, our contingent from the different campuses, Centro Escolar Makati, here led by Dr. Andoy, the EIS Makati led by Mr. Victorino. Ed Victorino is here together with his students. And then from CEU Malolos, led by no less than the Vice President, Dr. Maria Flor de Lisa Anastasio. And then, of course, the CEIS Malolos, led by the Principal, Miss Abby Espineda, together with the students also. And then, of course, our Centro Escolar Las Piñas, led by our Senior Assistant Vice President, Dr. Nila Abelia, and her staff, members of the administration, and also the students that are with her. And of course, the CEU Manila and CEIS Manila students, no? And of course, and of course, as mentioned by the President also this afternoon, we have them also in our campuses, in the Centro Dome of CEU Malolos, the Student Activity Center of Makati, CEU Makati, and the Assembly Hall of Centro Escolar Las Piñas. Okay, so today is a very significant day for Centro Escolar. We are convened here for our University Convocation on climate change. This is the first time we are doing this face-to-face after 2 years. But today is doubly significant because we are also launching the revitalized Kalinga. So Dr. Padolina said Kalinga is a program, environmental program, prior to the pandemic, and we call it Kalikasan ay ingatan at alagaan. So this is the Centro Escolar, dati we call it CEU, but we call it the Centro Escolar Environmental Action Program. So the word action has been inserted, and that it is Centro Escolar because we have also included our subsidiary, CIS and CELP. And of course, sorry, medyo malinaw yung harap dito. Of course, I am very thankful also to our alumni who are here. So the invitation was quite late. It was only yesterday, but they are here present to celebrate with us. So I am glad that you came today. Some willingly because you are curious. What is Kalinga? Some of you, because you want this to become your advocacy, you are really serious about them. And some may be forced because their teachers asked them to be here, or I told you to be here. However, at the end of the day, this event, especially after hearing our speaker, gives us hope. Hope that we can do something. Hope that we can contribute, and hope that if we are going to act, no matter how small it is, collectively, I think is the word today, collectively, the result will be a big outcome. It is critical to protect the environment so as to reduce the damage brought about by anthropogenic activities. It is our moral obligation to protect the environment from pollution and other activities that lead to environmental degradation, which is injurious since it has long-term effects on the health of all living things, humans, animals, and plants. We need to conserve our resources for the future to continue enjoying life. Air and water pollution, global warming, smogs, acid rain, deforestation, wildfires, floods are just few of the environmental concerns that we are facing right now. It's our responsibility as we are appointed to be stewards of nature by our divine creator. And so therefore, we have to take active part in this endeavor. And today we have some guests which are not really from CEU, Centro Escolar, who are here to witness our commitment to our environment. So we have, of course, the members of the board of mga anak ni Inang Daigdig, led by Father Ben, and of course, a scientist, no less than scientist who is very much also, I know, passionate about the concern in our environment, Dr. William Padolina. And we have also, I think, maybe sa baba, some parents, I think, who came. So we have witnesses this afternoon. And I think with those witnesses, they will be able to see how committed and sincere we are. Centro Escolar has been committed to this important cause for a long, long time. When others are creating awareness, we have planted thousands of mangrove trees in different coastal areas in the Philippines. We put artificial reef in Batangas. We have environmental practices in the university like recycling of water output from distillation for flushing toilets and adding bricks to old toilets which water closets are big and uses a lot of water. No to styrofoam, no to plastics, no to wood products, and many more. When we turned to the new century in 2000, everybody was preparing how to welcome the new millennium. CEU have M3W. M3W, Millennium Tree Welcome. And tree because what we did then was to plant fruit-bearing trees in different parts of the Philippines in coordination with the local governments and the alumni, and the different colleges took part in this activity. And well, I know that some of the markers that we have put up are not there anymore, but the trees are growing. Okay, so the pandemic, however, made us forget what good we do to our environment. So we said that there were lesser emissions during the time, during the pandemic, because there were lesser transportation, there were lesser manufacturing that is happening. However, we have used a lot of packaging for food deliveries, the use of disposable materials, styrofoam, plastics, and all those things that are being used by our delivery guys. And again, we increase our solid waste that we produce. So data show that 70% of water pollution is caused by solid waste and only 30% is caused by industry. So with this, it means to say that it is our action should start within our homes, how to reduce our solid waste. So that is why Centro Escolar, through the leadership of our president, feel that we need to revitalize our environmental program. This time, we are seriously intending to include this program in instruction, in research, in our university social responsibility, and in the practices of the entire Centro Escolar. We have created a task force to ensure that the projects under the program are developed and implemented not in one campus, but in all our campuses, not only by the students, but by the faculty, non-teaching staff, and the alumni as well. And as I said, they are all represented here today. So the program gives focus on the 3 environmental emergencies identified by UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program, and these are addressing climate change, reducing pollution, and protecting biodiversity. Today, we are also, as a mark of our commitment, we are signing a memorandum of agreement with ang mga anak ni Inang Daigdig Incorporated regarding the production of bamboo tissue culture as we give our share to the 1 billion bamboo tree planting by the year 2030, whose aim is to address climate change. Let us make this planet a wonderful place to live. Individual commitment is needed. One does not need to put a lot of money to go green, but simple changes in daily lifestyle is all what is needed to reduce your carbon footprint on the environment. Let me share with you one quote that I try my best to live by. Live simply so that others may simply live. In whatever I do, when I buy, when I act, I always think of this quote. I am not sure it was written by Dwayne Elgin in his because I saw it first in his work Garden of Simplicity, but they said it was also said by Mahatma Gandhi, but according to literature also, it was quoted by Mahatma Gandhi quoted this phrase from Saint Elizabeth Seton, but really they do not know. But the words of this quote really struck me. Live simply so that others may simply live. So when I am feeling that I am being too materialistic, it is a guide for me how to live more sustainably and meaningful. I urge everyone to reflect on our ways of living and see where you can cut off to alleviate the burden on the environment. At this point, allow me to show you a short video to show some facts about our environment, our action, then the commitment of Centro Escolar. Video, please.
Earth, as far as we know, is unique in its capacity for life. Millions of species, billions of individuals. Each with their own characteristics. leading their own lives. But lives that are connected intimately to the lives of others around them. This is the Earth's great biodiversity. It is a wonder to behold, and yet so easy to take for granted.
The Philippines is one of the world's 17 megadiversity countries, which hosts 70% of the entire planet's species in its ecosystems and rich resources. Home to more than 52,177 described species, more than half of which are found nowhere else in the world. Home to endemic plants and animals. No wonder the Philippines ranks significantly in the world in terms of the number of unique species per unit area. The Philippines also geographically marks the apex of the Coral Triangle, the center of marine biodiversity worldwide. Its coral reef area runs to an estimate of 26,000 square kilometers, the second largest in Southeast Asia. Its coastal waters home to a wider range of corals, reef fishes, seagrasses, and mangroves. This is Megadiverse Philippines.
Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale, our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. Time is running out.
Sari-saring uri ng mga ilegal na pinutol na kahoy ang nasabat ng mga otoridad sa lalawigan ng
Amoy may bumabagsak na lava mula sa Mount Banahaw pasado alas 6 kagabi. Yun pala'y nilalamon na ng apoy ang paligid ng crater.
Kahapon, tanaw pa rin ang makapal na usok mula sa sulfur vents malapit sa tuktok ng Mount Apo.
Nalaman ang pagbaha sa pagkakaingin sa kabundukan kaya hindi na nito napigil ang tubig.
This is the last remaining watershed in north-central Mindanao. It's supposed to be protected land, but there's less than 10% of the forests left.
This is not a landfill. This is the ocean. More than 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic has been produced globally in the last 70 years.
Nanatiling malaking problema sa Metro Manila ang mga basura sa mga sapa, ilog, pati na sa Manila Bay.
Pero sa aming paglalayag papunta sa Isla Pulo sa Nabotas, ito ang tumambad sa amin. Mga inanod na basura mula sa iba't ibang kalapit na probinsya. Ayon sa pag-aaral ng Greenpeace, pinakamalaking pinagmumula ng polusyon sa mga ilog ang mga duming nanggagaling sa mga bahay. Sunod na riyan ang mga duming galing sa pagsasaka, pag-aalaga ng hayop at iba pang industriya.
Air is one of the basic necessities we human beings cannot live without. How do we ensure that we breathe clean air every day?
The haze that cover parts of Metro Manila. But it looks different in the morning when the haze is thicker and darker.
Metro Manila counts almost 8 million vehicles and growing, contributing to a staggering 80% of the total cause of air pollution.
The only way we can solve a problem is by a human solution. Never can we sit back and wait for miracles to save us. Miracles don't happen. Sweat happens. Efforts happens. Thought happens.
As one community, we advocate and support the integration of education for climate change and environment into the Centro Escolar Environmental Action Program. CEU Manila is committed to participate in the Environmental Action Program.
I have the power to make a positive difference in our climate crisis. I will use my power to do everything I can, through my actions and my voice, to bring about change. I will lead and encourage others to work as a team to solve this challenge. With Centro Escolar Task Force, together we will succeed. The change begins here, with me, now. Should keep our environment clean. Save Mother Earth. Let's start now.
Let's all work together.
Let's all work together.
Let's all work together.
Let's all work together.
The future is now.
I pledge to do my part to remind and to spread awareness. I pledge to use less plastic materials, save water, and turn off the lights if not needed. I pledge to always separate biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. I pledge allegiance to Mother Earth. I pledge that I will consider the environmental impacts of my decisions.
I pledge to be accountable
for my actions. For my actions and my books to bring about change.
I will lead and encourage others to work
As a team to solve this challenge. Together we will succeed. The change begins here with me now.
My Earth, my home. My Earth,
My home.
My Earth, my home.
My Earth, my home.
My earth, my home.
My Earth, my home.
The CEU Malolos community is one with the nation as we walk towards innovation with green actions.
We collectively raise our voices with stronger ties to ensure that every action we take has the greatest possible influence on our campus, nation, and the world.
With science and virtue, we ensure that our world is breathable for today's generation and the following years to come. Great hope paired with hopeful actions yields a limitless amount of change. Our community speaks for diversity as it moves towards sustainability. Together, let us all be agents of change, greener than we could ever be. Together, let's drink, speak, and act green.
Talino.
Mag-aral.
Guro.
Wani. Tagapamasiwa.
Kaysa ng buong Centro Escolar.
Sa pangangalaga. Pag-iingat.
At pagkalinga.
Sa ilang kalikasan.
Mabuhay tayong lahat. We see the sincerity and the conviction in the different phrases. The change begin with me now. Let's all work together. Together, we will succeed. Our planet, our home. Let us continue to contribute our treaties, time, talent, and treasures. Now is the time. Lahat-lahat tayo magkakasama. Nag-umpisa ito sa mga ilang faculty members na kinausap ko na nangako na tutulong ng walang ibang kapalit at nagdagdag pa sila ng kanilang mga kasamahang faculty members na nag-commit sa kanila kasama ang ibang faculty members sa ating mga campuses. No? So sa kanila nag-umpisa lahat ang pagpaplano natin sa Revitalize Kalinga. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.
Maraming salamat. Our Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Teresa R. Perez. At para po to formalize the collaboration between Centro Escolar University at yung nabanggit po kaninang environmental group, mga anak ni Inang Daigdig, we will proceed to our signing of the Memorandum of Agreement. May I call on, of course, Dr. Perez, our President and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Maria Cristina Padulina, and ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have this afternoon the Executive Director of Mga Anak ni Inang Daigdig, Father Benigno Ben Beltran, SVD. We are also joined this afternoon by a board member of this group, Ms. Nerissa Beltran. Ladies and gentlemen, ito po ang signing ng Memorandum of Agreement. Just in case kayo ay hindi familiar, ang ating pong gobyerno ay may ikinumit na 1 billion bamboo trees by 2030 as a response to the climate change na narinig ninyo kanina. And the CEU is tasked to, kasi ito bamboo tissue culture. Yan po yung ating gagawin. Gagawa ang CEU ng tissue culture, which will be turned over to this group, environmental group, mga anak ni Inang Daigdig para sa pagtatanim niyan. So ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for the formality of our collaboration. Signing the agreement once again, our President and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Maria Cristina Padulina, our Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Teresa R. Perez, Father Ben Beltran, SVD, Executive Director of Mga Anak ni Inang Daigdig, and Board Member Nerissa Beltran, also of the same group. Thank you so much po sa inyo. Another round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have another picture taking? Okay na. Ayan. This is indeed a concrete, practical action that one of our students raised a while ago in his question. Now, at this point, we will have the pledge to action. Of course, after the signing, we will have the pledge to action. And I will call these people to come on stage to lead our oath-taking. From CEU Manila, Mrs. Joanne Adriano. From CEU Makati, Mr. Rafael Joaquin Laksamana. For CEU Malolos, representative is Ms. Angelex M. Loto. For CEU Las Piñas, Ms. Angelica May Oishoko. CEIS Manila, Mr. Benji Danyo. For CEIS Makati, we have Mr. Nico Emmanuel Carsula. For CEIS may fan base. For CEIS Malolos, Mr. John Siders Cruz. And we have a representative from our alumni we love her, Miss Betty Lou Piñera. Opo, dito na lang sila. Okay, dito. Opo. Okay. Saan sila? Dito sila? Okay, dito na lang po kayo sa ground.
May we also request everyone to stand up as we
Yeah,
are
please.
doing
Everyone,
the
please
pledge.
rise. Yes po. Even in our different campuses na naka-hook po sa atin. Can we project, Sir June, yung mga campuses po natin?
Itaas po natin ang ating kanang kamay at sabay-sabay po nating bigkasin ang ating panunumpa para sa pagkalinga sa ating kalikasan. Ako ay nangangako na iingatan at pangangalagaan ang kapaligiran. Ako ang magsisilbing tagapagtanggol ng kalikasan. Makikiisa ako sa laban kontra sa pagbabago ng klima. Aking aalagaan ang saribuhay. Sisikapin kong mabawasan ang polusyon. Bilang katiwala ng Panginoon para sa kabutihan at paglago ng sanlibutan, sisimulan ko ang pagbabago. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much. Simultaneous po ang panunumpa. Ginawa rin po yan sa ating other 3 campuses na nakahook sa atin. Can you now sit down? At this point, we will have another interlude to serenade us ng kantang Amazing Grace by John Newton. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEU Concert Band Ensemble to be led by Mr. Kim Correa. Thank you so much, CEU Concert Band Ensemble, led by Mr. Kim Correa. Amazing Grace by John Newton. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now sing the CEU hymn. Of course, this will be led by CEU Singers Manila. Thank you so much, CEU Singers Manila. So you may now take your seats po. Before we end, we would like to request all our participants later to proceed to Student Activity Center. Meron po tayo doong commitment board. Meron doong puno kung saan magsasign po tayo. Okay? So, I think that concludes our University Convocation for 2022 and our launching of Kalinga. Ako po ang inyong professor ng bayan, si Ricky Rosales, na nag-iiwan lamang ng message, in our own little ways, we can still save our crying planet. Thank you so much and good afternoon.